ladies. How are you doing? And how's my beloved son, Eric?
Hi. Eric says, I'm good, Mama. He says, I love you.
Love you
Um,
too. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about walk-ins because I don't know very much about it, but one early on, a wonderful blog member said that he was a walk-in, and it made total sense. His whole story. It's like, what are walk-ins? Let's share for the with the rest of the class.
Eric says, he goes, this is kind of a hot topic. He says it's new, but it's not as new as it used to be because more people are more familiar with this. He says, but walk-ins been happening long time, years, decades, and stuff, forever. He says they've been
Really?
happening.
Yeah.
And he says what they are, he says, and more so now, he says in the past, he says like he's showing me 20 to 30 years more so in this time frame. And he says mainly because we're rapidly growing. And so sometimes the agreement is where walk-ins have it where prior to the first soul number one comes in, there's an agreement like, okay, I'm going to come in and be here for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. And then I'm going to go back, but you can come in and take over if you want. And so that agreement is made. So that happens. And he says, usually walk ins happen when there's something traumatic, an illness, a surgery, a near death, or
Yeah.
something of that sort.
They're like,
Um,
"Oh my God, I can't take it. Get me out of here." Is it that kind of thing?
um, No, he says no because the agreement was already made. So it's like, okay, changing, it's like changing of the
Okay.
guards or something. He's saying, it's kind of like changing your clothes, going, changing. He says, like changing your clothes. He says, he's showing me like people who perform, they hurry up and change their clothes for the next skit. And it's kind of like that. They hurry up and change out the souls. And he says, it's done that way. Or sometimes he says in the middle of the life, some people who he says, and there's not like a clear cut one, it always happens this way, but he says sometimes in the middle of someone's life, they've suffer severe depression or illnesses or um, and they just are like, forget it, and they don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
He says, we travel back and forth to space or what we call heaven.
Yeah.
And then there's discussions about that. So then they make a decision and they say, okay, I
While we're in
want
the
some.
body,
I'm sorry.
while we're in the body, we.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah. And he says then there's discussions made, and it's like renegotiating our contracts is what he says. So we go. He says like for
Refi on your on your mortgage.
yeah, like he says like he's saying just like for me, I go back and I say, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I want to renegotiate my contract, and then they go. He says it's kind of like a committee in a sense. We'll discuss what's going on, and then there'll be somebody that says, okay, well, I want to take over. I can do this. I have plans. This is what I want to do, but I don't want to start from infancy or teenage years or whatever it could be.
Oh yeah.
And so then
Yeah. Who would want to be a teenager? Ugh.
I know, and then the exchange is made, and it can happen when somebody's having Eric says as simple as having your appendix removed or um, you know uh, anything, or any other type of surgery, or it can happen when you have a car accident or something, or um, sometimes he says that it happens when people try to take their own lives, and you think, how in the heck did they survive? And it's
Oh yeah.
because of a change out. He
What
says
happens? Okay.
no, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
Um, and he says, and sometimes he's even shown me like when people get struck by lightning or something of that sort, there's an exchange that goes on. And he says it's all, everybody has everybody's consent on it.
Yeah.
And he's showing me there was a show on Netflix called I think, called Travelers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and that was a lot about walk-ins and that. And
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
Erik says the writers for that, where do you think they got their ideas from?
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And
Plagiarizing. Kidding.
yeah, so I just so with that being said, I even asked Erik, so when they come in, do they take over the illnesses and everything that goes on in the body that
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
the original person one had?
Yeah.
And he said it depends. It depends on if that was part of the agreement. Sometimes the person number, I'll just say Susie 1 and Susie 2. Susie 2 will come in and say, I'm not going to come in and deal with that. I don't want that. So then when Susie 2 comes in, they go into exercise regimen, eating healthy,
Oh, okay.
researching and doing all kinds of stuff, and not so that they don't have to go through all those ailments.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes he says people, he says when a walk-in happens, usually the person knows something's different, something isn't right.
That's what a question I want to ask. But before I forget, how does the exchange happen? Do they are they both in for a while and then the other one leaves, or does the old one go and then the other one comes in, or is it simultaneous? How does that how or maybe it's different each time?
A good question. Erik is showing me, he shows me like when number 2 comes in, number 1 is kind of like greeting them on the outer part, like above the body
Okay.
type thing is what I see. And they're just meeting each other. And as part of the energy of one is leaving, the other part is coming in. So the body's not soulless. Does
So
that make sense?
there's no death.
Correct. Sometimes there is like a near death experience, or
Oh yeah.
like where they stop
Sure.
breathing for seconds or whatever, and like that. Uh, but like when they have surgery or a car accident, they get knocked unconscious or something like that. He says it's like they're just moving in and out like simultaneously.
Okay. Um. So I hear these stories, for example, of people waking up after surgery with a completely different accent or speaking a foreign language. Is that always an example of a walk-in? I mean, is that always a walk-in?
Erik says no, it's not always a walk-in. Um,
Maybe sometimes another life bleed through,
well,
or
that's what Erik is saying. Sometimes a memory gets triggered, and he's showing me a memory in here, but I feel like it's a memory in here, but he's saying a memory in here gets triggered, and it is from another life. It's kind of like they opened up that channel,
mm.
and that's where that's coming from. And
You
Erik
get
says
Berlitz. Let's put it that way, man.
I know.
Seriously.
And
That's
Erik says sometimes, but sometimes it is sometimes it is a walk-in that's coming in.
so I'm gonna ask, how does one know one is a walk-in? And number one, number two, how do other people or family and friends know that they are a walk-in? So let's start with this. What are the signs? Am I a walk-in? Because I died when I was 6 months old.
Erik says no, mama, you're not.
Well, okay. Because I wouldn't have chosen this life. Well, I had Erik, so my lovely babies. All right, so yeah.
Erik says when you died when you were a baby, you made a decision to come back.
Okay.
So you were you then, and you came back as you. But he
Woo!
said on that one.
Low learner.
But
God. Oh, Paulina. Okay. But so what did I ask? I can't. Oh yeah. So how would a person know or get a sign or symptom that they are walking?
Erik says usually what happens is when the person wakes up, because that's usually when it's they wake up,
Mhm.
and he says, and he's telling me sometimes it happens in a person's sleep.
Oh, okay.
Not as often, but sometimes it does happen. He says, but the person then wakes up and notices, because they have like a recollection, like the human part of them remembers like, oh, I used to like biscuits with bacon, and now I can't even stand the thought of eating meat.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, and then it's like weirdness. It's kind of like getting used to, um, he says it's like moving into a house that's already fully furnished and has all your clothes and makeup or no makeup or shaving cream, whatever it is, he's trying to throw in. He's not trying to favor one gender or the other when he's saying that. And it has all the food. All you have to do is turn the key and walk in the door. And you're looking around and you're like, this isn't what I'm normally used to.
Mm.
And you're like just looking around, and it's like you don't know who gave you the house, but you know the house is yours. And because somebody said, get the key, and you got the papers, the deed to the house or whatever. And you're just trying to figure it out, but yet you're like, how did this happen? And you just don't know. And he says, and when you're the walking, you're like, something isn't like it used to be. And then you notice your hairstyle the way it is, he says, and you're like, you're thinking like, I can't stand the way my hair looks. I can't imagine why I would ever pick this hair. What is wrong with me? And then you start questioning things. He says a lot of times people go by the style of their hair, how they used to wear their makeup, or how they wore their jeans or their shoes, or the kind of foods. And you just kind of feel like, he says, you're just sitting back watching a movie because you don't know, things look real weird, like you know the people around you, but yet you don't know the people around you.
Well, it kind
And
of makes sense if you had a trauma that created the what, like a major surgery or a car wreck. I mean, you could say, "Oh yeah, I something happened. I don't know. My brain's got scrambled. This is what it is." But if this happens in your sleep, it must be really hard to justify, or maybe not.
well, he says he said it is, and both of them are, because the people will toss it off as, oh, okay, well, it was my surgery, this is why I'm feeling weird, but then it goes on for months and months and months. And he says, and then for most people, he says, they start investigating, and then as the student's ready, the teacher starts bringing stuff to them to find out things. I have met 3 walk-ins, and one I knew personally, and before, after she was the walk-in, and she was a totally different person, and she showed me her pictures before it happened and after, and she looks totally different now. The hair color's the same, but everything else is totally different. She was um, Eric has wanted me to say a domestic engineer. She was a housewife, loved it and everything, and completely changed it. She did not like that or nothing. She became a healer. She was a
Wow.
massage therapist and became a healer, and really went on her path. And then I know someone else that who is, and personally, and it's also a blog, with channeling Eric, and their family, um, her family knows about it and understands it as much as they can, and it works. There's acceptance there and stuff, and it wasn't an easy. It was kind of challenging, but there's more stuff here for it to do research. Now, the one where was the housewife, there was no internet back then,
Mm, yeah. That's
so it's and but it's Eric says the ones that are walk-ins, though, they come here. The reason being is because the second person that came here, they have a big mission to do, something to accomplish. It's not like they're just coming here to sit back and drink margaritas by the pool. They come here for a
you can do
purpose.
that and have a purpose too, right? Oh,
Yes, but he says, but they came here for something
yes.
big. If
Are they
it,
usually more evolved than what they're supplanting?
yes, yes, yes.
Ah, okay.
And Eric says, and that's why sometimes the other person chooses to leave, because it's not that they're not as advanced. It's just like this was just too much for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And they're like, I should have taken on the life of losing one child instead of two, or stuff like this, and it gets to be too much. And and Erik uses that because there's a lot of people here that can relate to that example.
What?
So
Oh,
go ahead.
what about Aunt Terry? All of a sudden, I mean, she's been vegetarian since she was little, but all of a sudden she's like, "I want a side of beef and I want it now." Is she a walk-in? I mean, she's had so many really serious hypoglycemic episodes from insulin that it could happen, but I don't know. Is she?
Erik says no, but she's really in tune with her body,
Oh yeah, she definitely is. Yeah.
and vegetarian is what worked for her and what she needed to do to get to where she was. And then all of a sudden, she that isn't what she needed anymore, and then she went the other route. And it's funny you talk about that, because Erik says you ought to talk about different type of diets, because people still have a problem with that. And I said, I don't want to talk about diets.
Oh,
And
who wants to?
and he's talking about, like, should you eat meat, should you eat vegan, should you eat vegetarian, should you eat this way or whatever. But Erik says she just listened to her body, and her body needs what it is that she wants.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like Erik is telling me her body is responding to eating meat,
Good,
like in a
good.
good
And
way.
she
And
feels better. She does.
yes,
She really does feel better. I mean, I
yeah.
guess you change, right? And of course, we have ascension going on, so our dietary needs can change, etc. All right. So, how can another person tell if their friend or family member is a walk-in? What are the signs and symptoms?
Erik says, there's several. One is like, not as engaged, feeling distant, but yet connected, but yet there's a distance, like
On
the,
the part of the person,
yeah,
the non-walk-in or the walk-in?
the walk-in.
Oh,
Like,
okay, okay.
there's a connection, but yet there's something missing there. He's showing me their mannerisms. And also too, they sleep a lot in the beginning. He says they sleep a lot. And Erik is telling me to say not everyone, but a good portion of the walk-ins sleep a lot, because it's an adjustment being in this adult body
Yeah.
and stuff. And he says, and then a lot of them will question things like, did I really like to do this? Or I don't remember when we had this picture made. Where was this? And they'll
Oh,
just
yeah.
start. And then also Erik says a lot of them will start questioning God, or spirituality, and start wanting to look in that direction. Or even sometimes a lot will work looking like ET direction, space,
Oh,
other
really?
things going out there. Yeah, they'll want to know. They'll have a, like, because they're searching. They want to know something. And he says a lot of them sometimes will think, and I say a lot. There's many that wonder, did an ET come in and swap them out or something? Were
Oh,
they abducted or something? They have those
wow.
thoughts.
I can imagine. Hearing your dog started my dogs going. All right, so okay, so are there ever any children walking in the? You said adults getting used to the adult body. What about kids' bodies?
Erik said yes, because when I was talking about that, Erik shows me, with teenagers that happens. And sometimes it happens because there's two parts to it, so that the family doesn't have to so-called lose their child. And so another one comes in and says, let me take the role, because it would be more damaging for you to leave. And so they come in and do that. And sometimes kids who have really strong birth defects, or I should say severe birth defects, sometimes there's a change in that,
Yeah.
because um, that's a tough life. Those
Oh,
are
yeah.
master teachers.
Oh,
Those are master teachers right there.
Yeah. Well, why can't they figure that contract out before incarnating? Why it just it's not until you're in the pits that you really realize.
Well, Eric says they're master teachers coming in like that to pick that role. He says that's a master teacher
No,
coming
I'm
in.
talking the walk-in that comes in
Oh,
to.
the walk-in, because they want to come in, and because there's things that that person needs to do, and it could be like for the family or the people around them learn from this, because it makes you have to go inward, whether you want to or not. You have to dive into your intuitiveness, your God consciousness, whatever you want to call it, your inner self. You
Mm,
have to really dive in that to make sense and to find meaning for life. And that, Eric says, that's basically why we're here, is to find our authentic self, find that meaning, and then we spread that around to everybody else. Like he says, like, look at you, mom. He says, look what you're doing.
So I mean, but the kids. So are there? Do walk-ins ever happen with a baby? At any, it can happen at any age, I guess, right?
Yes, he said sometimes it happens with babies. Sometimes, but usually not, because the walk-ins come in because they want to bypass that stage.
Oh, okay. It's like a
But
bypass, but a lot of time.
yeah, sometimes though, he says, for infants, not normally.
Okay, how many walk-ins are there in the world now? I mean, just give me a 5 figures, 4 figures, whatever. I mean, six. How many right now?
He's showing me in the high 6-digit figures.
What? Is there anybody in my family or among my family that walk-ins?
Not in your family, no.
Okay.
But you have some friends that are, or know of some people that are.
Okay, interesting. So you can leave this life by being replaced by a walk-in, or you
Mhm.
can kill yourself. Eric, why didn't you just be a walk-in? Couldn't you just be supplanted by a walk-in?
Because we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Oh, okay. So tell me about the difference between with that decision, killing oneself or saying, help, replace me. Let's talk about that.
He says, he's sorting it out for me, dumbing it down. Um, he said, yes, having a replacement for him, having Eric number two, and he goes, ha, 2.0, come in. Yes, that would have been great for you and some other people for the moment.
Yeah, I would know.
But,
I would probably
but,
know.
but it wouldn't, in the long run, it wouldn't have been what's best for everybody. Because he says, you see how much everybody has grown, especially you, Mama, especially you. And
I got a long way to go.
Papa, he says, no, you've like, you growth on steroids is what this has done. And this is what you came here to do, was to learn this.
Yeah.
And you're a healer. So what better way to express to show that you're a healer. He's showing me all kind. I'm trying to, because with a healer we're able to demonstrate and show through our own actions and our own, and how we heal, because people know that you're a healer by the stuff that you have gone through and been through. So you're not just talking from a textbook.
Yeah.
And so he said, now he chose that way, and he says it's hard for people to understand this, especially when someone takes their own life and chooses their own exit. He says, but that is what worked best for everybody around.
Well,
And
what
he
about other
says,
people? Well, when does the soul say, suicide because I hate this shit? Or, come on, replace me, your shift. I mean, what happens with that decision?
Eric says, it's like a decision on a soul and a human level. And sometimes he says, sometimes people don't plan out and say, on February 9th, I'm going to go do this. It's like something happens and they snap and they go do it.
Impulse, like F you thing. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
usually the human side that is like, I'm going to off myself.
Yes.
Instead of getting,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Ugh.
And he says, usually too, when we're in that state, we don't think like, okay, maybe I can figure out a way how to get a walk in and stuff. He says, because usually a lot of us are cut off from that part of our life, the
Yeah.
spiritual aspect.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that maybe the higher self could influence, but they're not like,
He says,
I
but
don't know
there's free
about all-"
will.
Yeah, there's free will. Gets us in trouble every time. Anything else you want to say about walk-ins before we close up?
Well, Erik says, it's becoming, this is really kind of a hot topic. People, he says, are really researching this stuff on the web.
Wow.
And there's a lot of curiosity about it. And he says, it's going to be to where somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that is a walk-in.
Well, oh, sorry.
Or somebody's going to know that somebody's just real weird after they had surgery or whatever, and they just are not the same person. And you're going to know, like, I bet they're a walk-in.
How damaging is it to a child that's being reared by a mother or a father that all of a sudden is a walk-in? I mean, the children are very intuitive,
Yes. He says, of course, the agreement with the walk-in with, with the two Susies. Also, who else is involved in this on a soul level is everyone that's around them.
Okay, including the child.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but on a human level, sometimes it is hard and traumatic to some degree.
Yeah.
But as the kids get older, usually the parent will talk about it with their children to educate them, because the walk-in is very enlightened and wants to teach that to their children.
Okay.
So, to let them know that there's something else other than
that whole nurture and nature thing gets like turned on its head.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, sounds great. You guys check her out, DeniseRamon.com. She's not only a channeler, but she's a healer, a wonderful healer.
Oh,
and I just love you so much, and I love your whole family. We need to get together, and you guys also go to AtlantisScalar.com to see if there's something we can offer you. So
absolutely.
Love you. Bye. I love you.
Love you too. He says, I love you too, Mama. Thank you so much.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.